Hey everybody, my name's Democracy, and I want to welcome you back to our series ranking the Soulsborne boss difficulty. This time we'll be checking out the granddaddy of them all, Demon Souls. Though since Demon Souls had the least bosses in the series, we'll be ranking some of the mini bosses as well. With that said, let's jump in at number 23. I couldn't really imagine any other boss bringing up the rear of this list. Well, I guess that's if you even consider this a boss. I mean, the meter pops up at the bottom of the screen and is treated like a boss battle, but this fight is the epitome of a joke. Seriously, all this guy does is flop around every couple seconds for minimal damage. Just keep whacking away at him and he'll die eventually. Even putting this blob on the list was debatable, but his significance in terms of lore makes him not completely useless. But as technically the final boss of Demon Souls, this battle is a massive letdown. The first boss in the entire series for some is also one of the easiest. This is also one of the first of many bosses on the list you'll see as a heavy inspiration for later bosses in Soulsborne. In this case, this is the origin of fights like Royal Rat Vanguard and the Celestial Emissary. This demon wears a bunch of mini phalanx enemies as a protective coating. However, if you explore the palace extensively, you likely found turpentine and fire bombs, two fire items to make this easy boss even easier. Just toss the bombs and then slaughter the enemies with your flame-coated weapon. Once they're all eliminated, the grotesque slime ball can do nothing but slowly sliver away in fear before you deliver the final blow. The ADJUDICATOR is probably the best example of how the primitive movesets and AI can be in this game, and how easily it can be exploited as a result. This fatty has some of the most telegraphed, and therefore simple to dodge moves of any boss in the entire series. If that wasn't enough, once you figure out his weak spot and hammer it in, he falls to the ground stunned and takes massive damage. The idea is cool in theory, but the battle would have been much more intense if the boss had a complex moveset to better guard his weak spot. If you're playing through the game for the first time, you almost certainly were slain by this guy in the tutorial, if you even made it there, that is. Since 4-1 is probably my choice for the hardest first archstone with these vicious skellies, you'll probably be decently leveled when you face Vanguard. That makes the fight relatively easy, especially with this exploitable moveset. Really, this dude must have smashed that ass down at least 5 times in a row. Just play it safe and you should have no problem enacting your revenge. Well, this boss is certainly a fool, or perhaps it would be more appropriate to call her lazy. I have never seen a boss in Soulsborne so disinterested in killing you. When the fight starts, she just kinda hangs out at the front of the church. Once you beat her around a little bit, she'll show up with a bunch of clones. But even at that point, she's pretty easily identified because she has a larger soul ray attack than the other clones. From there, just use whatever magic or bow you may have and you'll easily down the mother of Pinwheel. My first time playing Demon Souls, I used the sticky compound longbow for pretty much everything, including most bosses. So I don't even know if I got to see LEECHMONGER in that playthrough for more than 10 seconds before he was dead. After facing him this time around, it turns out he can throw leeches at you and he has a few pathetic melee attacks, but really this arena is just too large and the boss is just too slow and weak to pose any threat whatsoever. Be it magic, bow, or melee at your disposal, and it really just shouldn't take you too long at all to slaughter this nasty leech. Unfortunately, I don't actually have footage of the old monk NPC to show you, because I had some godly stroke of luck and I actually got invaded by a player. But in my first playthrough, I did face the NPC version, which is really just an easily killed humanoid NPC using claws. Think of it as something like the hunter battles in Bloodborne, except a heck of a lot easier. These days, it's almost certain you'll get the NPC here, and if you do, there's no doubt it's the easiest archdemon fight in the entire game. While Demon Souls probably has on average the easiest bosses in the entire series, it also boasts some of the most creative boss fights I've ever played. One such fight pits you against the Storm King, one of the flying mana rays found through Shrine of Storms that has been blown up to a massive scale. You'll fight a number of the normal manas, but there's one thing that makes this fight pretty easy, and that's the house over here. You can hide in here and be pretty much safe from all of their attacks. Once you've killed enough, the Storm King shows up. If you've got a bow, then it's pretty much a joke killing him. But there is a much more fun, albeit risky way. With a bit of bravery, you can rush to the bottom of the arena and grab the Storm Ruler, an epic sword that allows you to pierce the sky and strike the mana down. I definitely found this to be kinda difficult to pull off and a hell of a lot more dangerous, but damn if it wasn't satisfying dealing the killing blow with it. After undoubtedly one of the most unpleasant areas in Soulsborne comes yet another easy boss. In a lot of ways he's similar to Leechmonger, another big arena, weak attacks in general, and he can coat you in his filth to sap your health. I wasn't aware at the time, but you can actually use the torches around the stage to rid yourself of the flies. With that knowledge, it can make the fight a bit easier. I'll be honest though, I tried to draw this fight out intentionally knowing he was supposed to be one of the easier bosses, and I actually got knocked around a little bit. A solid reminder that even some of the easier bosses in the Souls games can still be a threat if underestimated. My most memorable boss in Demon Souls goes to the Tower Knight. The opening cinematic, the epic music, and the overwhelming sense of dread you're overcome with when you see the size of your opponent is a moment I won't soon forget. Before you even consider challenging the Knight, you'll need to rid yourself of the archers around the arena. You must be careful, however, because the Knight can shoot soul arrows at you as you clear them out. With just you and the Knight remaining, it may seem daunting at first, but he's got a big weakness, and that's his head. But how could you possibly reach it? By nipping at his ankles, of course. Just be careful because his size gives a strong AoE to all of his attacks. Once down, you can see just how much damage that head takes. While the difficulty of the fight is reduced once you know how to handle it, this fight surely claimed many souls of new players back in the day. I'm just gonna warn you now, this is some embarrassing footage. The first time around, I fought this spider like a little bitch with the bow while hiding in the back of the hall in the invincible spot. But no, not this time around. I'm gonna run up like a hero and well, now that I'm up in its face, And that's just about how the whole fight went. I don't think I dodged a single one of its attacks. Fortunately, I leveled Vitality heavily early on, but I still felt lucky to come out of this fight alive. As for suggestions, it would have to be, do exactly the opposite of what I showed here. Definitely a fan favorite, Maiden ASTRAEA and GARL VINLAND is a deceptively challenging battle. While ASTRAEA herself rivals the True King in terms of actual ease, GARL VINLAND and his army of plague babies are no pushovers. VINLAND himself is adept at parrying you, hits for absolutely massive damage, uses Wrath of the Gods, and can heal himself. It's a lot like a PvP fight, and honestly, it's a total blast. It's made even more difficult if you fight in the water. The water will instantly give you the plague, which is a disease kind of similar to Toxic in Dark Souls 2. And finally, there's these disgusting baby monsters that can be a nuisance, especially if you get yourself surrounded. If you manage to kill GARL without assaulting ASTRAEA though, she won't even fight you, being the only boss in the series to kill herself. This is one of the rare bosses in the series that is actually somewhat easy and isn't that unique of a fight, but it's really well regarded by fans because by the time you get here, you're likely nearing the end of the game, and the whole fight with ASTRAEA is kind of structured to make you rethink your decisions of going around and slaying all these demons. It's a really cool fight and a good job from FromSoft. Did you hate the bed of chaos? Oh, of course you did. Well, if there's anything close to that level of frustration in Demon Souls, it's gotta be the Dragon God. In an attempt to turn the game into Metal Gear Souls, you have to actually use stealth to conquer this beast. What's the consequence of failure? You get fucking wrecked. This boss boils down to such riveting mechanics as hiding behind pillars, smashing rubble, more pillar hiding, and shooting 2 ballistas at the dragon. Once down, you just beat his face to death. Not only is this definitely the worst boss in Demon Souls, but it goes down as a huge disappointment considering the guy was plastered all over the marketing and cinematics for the game. Definitely not an easy boss to rank, the Red Dragon is less of a fight against challenging mechanics and more a battle with your own patience. After meeting the dragon in 1-1, you finally get a chance for some revenge in 1-2. Unfortunately, the only way of really doing anything is to shoot the beast down with hundreds of arrows. There's other methods like magic that can be faster, albeit a little bit more risky. Either way, this mini boss is definitely just a pain in the ass. Before my replay, I remember this boss actually being one of the hardest in my game the first time around. That's because I hid in the back of the arena with a bow and just kinda hoped he'd run away after I hit him. But this time around, with much more Souls experience under my belt, I summoned up my courage to melee the old hero, and honestly, I found it to actually be a much easier experience. The old hero is blind and he can only follow you by sound, but if you wear light armor and utilize the ever-useful Thief's Ring, you're unlikely to be discovered. Just wait until he attacks, get a few hits in from behind, and then run away. Rinse and repeat, and you'll defeat the old bat in no time. The other dragon of the blue variety is definitely the bigger pain of the two fights. For the first half, you're relatively safe and can chill back and just kinda snipe at it. But once it reaches half health, it retreats. Then comes the real challenge: get past its damn flame attack to safety. I felt seriously lucky to only die to this once. The second time, Bior showed up and made it a bit easier to get by. Afterward, you can just shoot under it safely, which brings back the very long tedium of the red dragon. Just boring. The Penetrator is the tale of two bosses. If you bring Bior to this fight, he'll distract the Penetrator for you 99% of the time, making the fight pretty damn easy. If you take him on solo though, you'll find the experience much more challenging. He's got quite a few oddly paced attacks and is rather aggressive compared to a lot of the bosses in Demon Souls. This was my first time actually facing him solo, and I definitely struggled to dodge his attacks at first. But once you get the hang of it, it gets a little bit easier, and the boss is actually kind of exhilarating. I definitely felt really accomplished when I finally downed him. Ready to see me get demolished? Yeah, I walked in here feeling all confident like, oh yeah, you stupid fatty, I just beat Bloodborne and Dark Souls 2. Get ready to get shit on, you well then. While the boss himself is no different than when you face him in 4-1, you on the other hand are completely unleveled and weak. This means you've got to chip away at the boss's health little by little, and you can only handle about a hit or two before you die. Undoubtedly hard. You should certainly feel accomplished if you've ever managed to beat the Vanguard in the tutorial. While he technically isn't a boss, he's deserving of consideration as one, considering there are only a few bosses that can eclipse his difficulty. At first, he won't even fight you. This dude actually asks you to beat him up while he just stands there and takes it. That's how badass this dude is. Eventually though, enough is enough and he decides to take you on. The challenge of this guy is twofold. He's got a crap ton of health and hits extremely hard. Honestly, I think the only reason I didn't have a harder time with him is my Meridian Hammer allowed me to bait him and kinda hit him from a distance. Another option is to poison him with the Poison Cloud spell, and honestly, I don't think anyone will blame you for taking the easy way out on this one. To keep it as simple as possible, this is a PvP battle, literally. A player gets summoned and you two duke it out for the soul of a demon. Obviously the challenge of this fight is going to differ heavily based on your opponent, but one thing that consistently makes it difficult is latency. In my fight, a lot of hits seem to register at really weird times. I think the range of my Meridian Hammer really helped me out though, because I decided to bank my victory on my opponent just rushing me and running out of stamina in a desperate attempt to finish me in one combo. I knew they weren't going to be able to roll after that combo, and I felt great when I pulled off the killing blow because I've never even gotten a chance to play PvP in Demon Souls before. This was far and away the hardest time I had with any boss in this run. I'll come clean and admit that on my first run I used the cheap tactic of sniping ALLANT through the fog gate. So this is my first true experience fighting the False King, and boy did I get my ass absolutely kicked. In my first fight alone, I lost like 4 to 5 soul levels. Oh, that's right, he has a Soul Sucker spell that will rob you of a soul level each time you get hit with it. He's also very aggressive, difficult to dodge, and he has extensive range to his blows via energy waves coming out of his strikes. I felt so confident going in that I'd be able to dodge him up close, and I was just embarrassed at how awful I was at it. I eventually got the hang of it a bit better, but I'd still say your best bet is to keep your distance throughout the fight to limit his moveset greatly. I like to think of this as the true final boss of Demon Souls, because after his defeat, the only thing left waiting for you is that guy. The originator of the gank boss, the Maneaters have to be one of the most shocking bosses for a new player. You start out facing an enemy that looks somewhat similar to the gargoyles you've been facing. He uses varying magic attacks and melee attacks that can be pretty devastating. Of course, there's also the horribly precarious bridge that you have to fight on. At first the fight isn't so bad, and if you're careful, it isn't even the worst. But then the second Maneater swoops in. Managing two bosses is hard enough, but managing your footing at the same time is a serious challenge. Fortunately, I managed to finish off the first Maneater around the time the second entered, so I spared myself a really big headache there. I would recommend the same strategy to you. Be ultra aggressive with your attacks as soon as the second Maneater shows up so you can finish off the first one. Of course, the Maneaters just love to fly away for endless amounts of time, so you've also got to hope RNG is on your side. No matter how your luck is, this fight is still going to be a true challenge from start to finish. For anyone who's played Demon Souls, it was fairly clear who would finish in the top 3. The order was really the only question. And while you could argue any of them are deserving of the top spot, I think FLAMELURKER really does earn his #1 billing. Why is that? FLAMELURKER's challenge is largely due to his unrelenting attacks. Seriously, this guy gives you very few moments of reprieve. While there are a lot of bosses that are like this later in the series, this was unprecedented in Demon Souls. That's partly because the pacing of the game makes it very difficult for you to face an enemy that is so fast and brutal. I was very surprised to beat this battle on my first go this time around because I got absolutely whooped by this guy the first time I played the game. But I think I have my experience as a Souls player to thank. One thing that the slow healing of Dark Souls 1 and 2 taught me is that if you want to heal, you need to dodge a boss's attack and then immediately heal after. Doing this, I was able to heal somewhat easily throughout the fight, keeping my health high consistently. Of course, dodging isn't that easy, and neither is avoiding his AoE blast to follow up some attacks. FLAMELURKER is rather weak to magic, so magic users likely had an easier time here. But if you take this demon on using melee, you'd better prepare for one of the most challenging bosses in Soulsborne. Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed checking out the bosses of Demon Souls with me. We've got one more game to go before Dark Souls 3, one that I think needs no introduction. The Dark Souls survey is in the description below, so be sure to subscribe for more Soulsborne content leading up to Dark Souls 3. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video!